The galaxy watched in fear as humans stormed out of the assembly. Ambassador Lyra Voss stood at the center podium, inside the Grand Assembly Hall high above Kalis Prime. The giant sphere glowed with soft blue light from 1,000 crystal panels. Every major species in the known galaxy had sent delegates here for more than 12,000 years. This place kept peace through careful words, endless treaties, and quiet threats. No one ever raised a voice too loud, because everyone knew what happened when voices turned to weapons. Humanity joined only 200 years earlier. The newest members always placed in the lowest ring of seats, a reminder that youth meant little power. The human delegation sat quietly, 12 people in plain navy uniforms, no bright colors, no fancy decorations. They listened, they learned, they waited. Today the motion came up again, sanctions on Earth for expanding too fast into sectors claimed by older powers. The vote needed only a simple majority. Elder species had already agreed in private meetings over the last months. Whispers in dark corridors, sealed deals over rare drinks. The result felt certain long before anyone spoke aloud. When the holographic display finally showed the tally, 287 votes for sanctions, 14 against, the hall went completely silent. Even the constant low hum of translators seemed to fade away. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy turned their many eyes toward the lowest ring, waiting for protests, pleas, angry speeches, anything that young species usually gave when cornered. Lyra Voss did not shout. She did not cry. She simply looked up at the towering seats around her, then pressed a small device against her ear, and spoke 3 soft words that only her people heard. Execute Protocol Olympus. The 12 humans rose together. No rush, no panic, just smooth, calm movement, like they had practiced this moment many times. They stepped out of their seats, walked down the wide aisle. Between glowing rows of alien representatives, every eye followed them, some with confusion, some with amusement, a few with growing worry. The Zarathi elder tilted his tall crested head and muttered, "They leave just like that." His voice carried through the open channel. Many others nodded, thinking the same thing. Humans always talked too much, argued too long, begged too hard. This time they did none of those things. Lyra led the way. Her boots made steady, quiet sounds on the polished alloy floor. Behind her, the rest of the delegation matched her pace exactly. No one looked back. No one hesitated. The massive doors at the far end of the hall stood closed, 20 meters high, carved from dark stone brought from a dead world long ago. The doors sensed their approach and began to iris open with a deep, low hiss. As the humans neared the threshold, the first murmurs started in the upper tiers. "What are they doing?" someone asked. "Why walk out without a word?" Another voice replied, "They must be afraid." The Voroth War Master laughed softly across his private link. "Let them run back to their little blue planet. We will handle the rest later." But Lyra heard none of it. She kept her face calm, her eyes forward. When the doors finished opening, she stepped through without pause. The others followed one by one. The last human crossed the line, and the doors began to close again, smooth and final. Inside the hall, the silence stretched longer than anyone expected. No one clapped, no one cheered. The delegates simply stared at the sealed doors, as if expecting them to burst open again, with humans rushing back, shouting demands or apologies. Nothing happened. The only sound left came from the soft ventilation fans high above. On screens across the galaxy, the live feed showed everything. Billions watched from crowded city squares on core worlds, from lonely outposts on the rim, from bridge views of warships hanging in deep space. The image froze for a moment on the empty aisle. Shots of the stunned assembly. A young Clith journalist on a news channel whispered into her recorder. They walked out. No argument, no final speech, just walked out. The galaxy has never seen anything like this before. In the control rooms of a dozen capitals, admirals and counselors leaned closer to their displays. Someone asked, "Is this real?" Another answered, "Check the feeds from Kalis Prime. It matches. They actually left. Back inside the hall, the Vorath War Master stood up slowly, his heavy armored shoulders shifting. He looked around at the other delegates, and spoke in a voice meant to carry. "We should not worry. They are young. They have no real fleet, no deep resources. This is theater, nothing more." But even as he spoke, his own officers sent urgent messages through secure lines. Sensor stations near human space reported strange activity. Colony ships that had been listed as peaceful research vessels suddenly changed course toward old restricted jump points. Began tight formation maneuvers that looked far too military for trade ships. One small probe deep in the dark returned faint readings of massive heat blooms from hidden yards in the outer belts of the Sol system. The kind of heat that only came from forges working at full power day and night. The War Master sat down again, his confidence cracked just a little. He stared at the closed doors and wondered for the first time if the humans had planned this moment years ago. If every polite smile, every careful treaty signature, every quiet nod in this very hall had been part of something much larger. Across known space, the word spread fast. Humans walked out of the assembly, no threats, no drama, just gone. The feeds replayed the scene again and again, the steady march, the calm faces, the doors closing behind them. People began to talk in low voices about what came next. No one knew for sure, but everyone felt the same cold thought settle in their minds. Something had changed. Galaxy no longer felt quite so safe. pp. Lyra Voss and her delegation boarded their shuttle without looking back. The small craft detached from the station, spun gently, and accelerated away toward the waiting human courier ship in high orbit. Inside the shuttle, no one spoke at first. They simply sat and breathed, letting the tension drain from their bodies. pp. After a long minute, Lyra turned to the others and said, "Phase 1 begins now." They nodded once, each face serious but calm. The courier ship opened its bay doors, welcomed them inside, then jumped away in a flash of distorted light, leaving Kalis Prime far behind. Far below, on the surface of the neutral world, night had fallen over the capital city. Billions of citizens looked up at the sky, where the great station hung like a second moon. Many wondered what would happen next. Some laughed it off as human foolishness. Others felt a strange new fear they could not name. In the assembly hall, the delegates finally began to talk. Again, voices rose in argument, plans, suggestions, demands, but underneath every word lay the same quiet worry. The humans had not begged or fought or threatened. They had simply left to do something else, something no one else could see yet. And that silence scared them more than any shout ever could. The galaxy watched and waited, afraid of what would come when the humans decided to return. The galaxy watched in fear as humans stormed out of the assembly. Hours passed after the humans left the Grand Assembly Hall, and already alarms rang across the Orion Arm. Sensor nets lit up like stars waking from sleep. Colony ships that everyone thought carried only scientists and settlers suddenly changed direction. They burned hard toward jump points marked forbidden for centuries. Merchant vessels that looked harmless turned into tight groups, moving with sharp military precision. Scouts from the Vorath Dominion raced to follow them, but found nothing easy. The humans slipped through nebula clouds and dark matter lanes that no one else dared use. On Kalis Prime, the emergency committees met in hidden rooms below the Great Hall. Delegates argued in low voices. Some laughed and said the humans only pretended strength. Others felt cold fear creep into their chests. The Vorath War Master stood at the head of one table, his heavy arms crossed. He spoke loud to calm his allies. He said, "No young race has the ships or the factories to fight us. We will watch them scatter when our scouts report back." But the reports came fast, and they did not match his words. Hidden yards in the outer belts of Sol and other human systems showed heat blooms so strong that probes burned out trying to get close. Factories worked without stop. Metal poured into molds, hulls grew longer and stronger every day. New designs appeared on scans. Cylinders wrapped in strange materials that bent light and heat away from sensors. Admirals in distant capitals stared at the images and felt their confidence slip. A single transmission broke through the silence. It came from a human fleet command and reached every open channel in the assembly. Emergency session. The voice sounded calm, almost tired. Admiral Reyes, to all battle groups, the galaxy has chosen sanctions over talk. We choose life over chains. Begin Phase 1 Reclamation. The word reclamation hung heavy in every translation matrix. One knew its full meaning yet, but it carried weight like a promise of storm. Everyone felt the air grow thick with worry. Species that once ignored humanity now searched old records for clues about these strange newcomers. They found stories of humans fighting among themselves on their single world, wars that lasted decades, machines built to destroy cities, bombs that could crack planets. Yet somehow, they survived and climbed out of their own ashes, stronger each time. The Vorath sent their fastest scout wings to shadow the human movements. 3 battle groups jumped into position near the edge of claimed space. They waited for the humans to make a mistake, to cross a line that would give reason for attack. But the humans did not rush. They moved slow and sure, like predators stalking through tall grass. Every jump calculated, every burn perfect. On the bridge of the Vorath flagship, War Master Krell watched the tactical display. His officers stood silent around him. Data streamed in human. Formations grew larger by the hour. Ships that once carried trade goods now showed weapon signatures. Railguns, coil drivers, drone bays, missile racks. Everything hidden until needed. One officer spoke in a low voice. "Sir, their numbers increase too fast. Our models say they cannot build this many hulls so quickly, yet the evidence sits right there." Krell stared at the screen and said nothing. His mind turned over old lessons taught in Vorath war academies. Never underestimate a cornered prey. But humans did not act cornered. They acted ready, as if this moment had waited in their plans for a very long time. Across the galaxy, news channels replayed the transmission again and again. Billions listened to those simple words, Phase 1 Reclamation, on crowded streets, on factory floors and quiet homes. People from every species asked the same question: what do they reclaim, and what will they take to get it? In the assembly hall, the delegates tried to vote on new measures. Bigger fleets, joint patrols, but arguments broke out. Older species blamed each other for letting humans grow too strong. Younger ones whispered that maybe the elders had pushed too hard. Maybe this walkout came from years of small insults and big restrictions. A Zarathi analyst sent a private report to her council. It read, "Humans do not fight for pride or land alone. They fight for room to grow. They build when others talk. They expand when others rest. If we force them to stop, they will not beg. They will push harder." The report spread quietly through secure channels. Fear followed close behind. 3 days after the walkout, the first real sign appeared. A human convoy approached the old border marker at Epsilon Reach, a zone marked neutral, but watched closely by 3 species. The convoy included 12 large transports, guarded by only 4 small escorts. The alien patrol moved in fast, demanding the ships halt for inspection. The human response came quick and clear. "This is civilian. Transit under treaty rights. Stand aside or be considered hostile." The patrol commander laughed over open comms and ordered boarding teams to prepare. But before the first shuttle launched, the human escorts changed shape. Panels slid open, bays unfolded, swarms of small drones poured out. They moved like living things, fast and smart. They targeted engines, weapons, sensors. In seconds, the patrol ships lost power. One by one, Alarms screamed across alien bridges as systems failed without a single shot from the human main guns. The human voice returned calm as before. "You were warned. Withdraw now or we finish this." The patrol pulled back, damaged and humiliated. The footage spread like fire through every network. Species that once mocked human ships now watched in silence. Those drones moved with purpose. No fear, no waste, just clean, efficient destruction. In the Vorath Command Center, War Master Krell slammed his fist on the table. His officers flinched. He ordered full fleet mobilization. Ship every station. Prepare for possible conflict. But deep inside he knew the truth. Humans had crossed no line, yet they defended what they claimed. And they did it without anger or brag. Just cold necessity. Nearer to Sol system, hidden listening posts caught more signals. Shipyards worked around the clock. Massive frames took shape. Engines tested at full power. Supply convoys jumped in from distant colonies, carrying rare metals, fuel cells, weapon cores, everything needed for war. But not one broadcast spoke of conquest. Only protection, only survival. On a small neutral station far from the core, a group of mixed-species traders sat in a dim bar watching the feeds. One human trader joined them quietly. He sipped his drink and listened to their talk. When they asked why his people left the assembly, he smiled thin and said, "We grew tired of being children in someone else's house. We decided to build our own." The traders fell silent. They looked at him with new eyes. Weak species, but something older, something patient, something dangerous. Days turned into weeks, and the human advance continued, slow, steady, unstoppable. They took no lives unless forced. They claimed empty systems, surveyed long ago, but never settled. Now they arrived with terraform rigs, mining rigs, habitat modules. Entire cities rose on barren worlds in weeks instead of centuries. When resistance came, it met walls of drones, shields of railgun fire, precise strikes that left nothing to chance. The galaxy watched every move, afraid to act, afraid to wait. The humans did not declare war. They simply reclaimed what they needed and dared anyone to stop them. And somewhere in the dark between systems, human admirals met in quiet rooms. They looked at maps of stars and said the same thing. Phase 1 proceeds as planned. The galaxy will learn soon enough what happens when we stop asking permission. The fear grew deeper, because no one knew where Phase 1 would end, or what Phase 2 would bring in. The galaxy watched in fear as humans stormed out of the assembly. 3 standard weeks after the walkout, the border world of Tarsus Verge became the place where everything changed. This dusty planet sat at the edge of what the assembly called secure space. A joint patrol from the Vorath Dominion and the Clith Concord kept watch over the jump lanes day and night. Their ships floated in lazy orbits, weapons cold but ready. The humans had never come this way before. So the patrols felt safe, almost bored. Then the sensors woke up. A human convoy appeared on the scopes, 12 heavy transports loaded with colony gear, and 4 escort carriers that looked too small to matter. The lead Vorath cruiser sent the standard hail. "Human vessels, this is restricted space. Stand down, prepare for boarding and inspection. Your passage rights ended with the new sanctions." Static filled the channel for a long moment. Then a clear female voice answered. "This is Captain Elena Marquez of the UNS Indomitable. You have 10 minutes to withdraw to your registered defense perimeter. After that, we will consider your continued presence an act of war." Laughter rolled across the Vorath bridge. The commander slapped his console and replied, "You joke, little human. Your ships are toys. Go home before we teach you respect." The Clith ships echoed the mockery, their high, thin voices carrying over open comms. 10 minutes passed in tense quiet. The human convoy did not slow. It kept burning straight toward the jump point. The Vorath commander gave the order. Boarding teams launch grapples, prepare to take control. Before the first shuttle cleared the bay, the human escorts changed panels, folded back, Hidden bays opened, swarms of drones spilled into space, hundreds of them, small, fast, silent. They moved like a flock of birds that knew exactly where to strike. The first wave hit the Vorath lead cruiser. Engines went dark, weapons arrays sparked and died. Sensors blanked out, one by one. The ship drifted, helpless. The Clythe frigates tried to turn and run, but the drones were faster. They danced around shields, found weak points, tore through armor with precise cuts. No explosions, just clean failure. Systems shut down, life support flickered, comms went quiet. The patrol squadron broke apart in minutes. 3 Vorath battlecruisers turned into clouds of spinning wreckage. The last Clythe frigate limped away, trailing plasma, its captain screaming for help over every channel. The human voice returned calm and even. You were given time to leave. Remember that the convoy continued on without pause, as if nothing important had happened. Footage from the surviving Clythe ship reached Kalis Prime within hours. Every delegate watched the replay in the assembly hall. The images showed drones moving with terrible purpose. No waste, no anger, just perfect efficiency. The hall filled with shouts. Some delegates stood and pointed, others sat frozen, faces pale. The Vorath War Masters stared at the screen. Fists clenched so tight the metal creaked. They did not fire first, someone whispered. They defended their right to pass. The room erupted in argument. Voices overlapped in every language. Fear turned to panic. The elder species had always believed young races would fold under pressure. Humans did not fold. They pushed back harder. News feeds across the galaxy carried the battle on repeat. Billions saw the same thing. Small human ships destroy much larger foes without losing a single hull. Traders in distant ports stopped laughing at human weakness. Admirals in secure bunkers ordered full alerts. Shipyards ramped up production. Patrols doubled everywhere. In the Vorath command center, the War Master paced back and forth. His officers stood silent. He stopped and looked at the tactical map. Human forces now held Tarsus Verge. They landed teams on the surface, set up habitats, started mining ops. No one tried to stop them. The local population, small and neutral, simply watched the humans. A Zarathi delegate rose in the assembly hall and spoke in a shaking voice. We must talk to them. Send envoys. Offer terms. Anything to stop this before it spreads. The room agreed. Fast. For once, no long debate. A diplomatic shuttle launched from Kalis Prime, carrying 3 elder representatives. They carried gifts, promises of new treaties, hopes of peace. The shuttle jumped to the edge of the new human zone and broadcast a request for parley. The human response came quick. We will meet, but only on neutral ground, at the old relay station in Sector 9. Come unarmed, no escorts, no weapons. The elders agreed. They arrived at the relay station, a small abandoned platform floating in empty space. The human shuttle docked. Minutes later, Ambassador Lyra Voss stepped out, alone. No guards, no fancy clothes, just her navy coat and a small datapad. She greeted the 3 elders with a polite nod and led them inside. They sat at a plain metal table. Lyra spoke first. Under your own charter, you pushed us into a corner. Now you face the result. The elders tried to explain, offered to lift parts of the sanctions, asked for time to vote again. Lyra listened without interrupting. When they finished, she shook her head. Too late, you drew the line. We crossed it to survive. The reclamation continues. One elder asked, what does reclamation mean exactly? Lyra looked at him for a long moment. It means we take what we need to grow what you denied us for 2 centuries. Empty worlds, resources, trade lanes, freedom to build without your permission. The elders left the meeting with no agreement, no promises, only the cold knowledge that humans would not stop. The shuttle jumped away, and the galaxy waited for the next move. Human forces spread to 3 more systems in the following days. Each time the pattern stayed the same. Scouts found empty or lightly held worlds. Convoys arrived. Terraform rigs dropped from orbit. Marine teams secured landing zones, followed, building habitats, factories, mines. When local forces appeared, the humans offered evacuation first. If refused, the fighting came fast and one-sided. Drones, railguns, precise orbital strikes. No cities burned, no civilians harmed, just military targets removed, clean and quick. The assembly tried everything: new sanctions, fleet deployments, symbolic blockades. Nothing worked. Human supply lines stretched through hidden routes, through nebulae, through dark space. No one could cut them off. Jump drives tuned for speed and surprise. Factories printed ships faster than anyone thought possible. A leaked memo from the Zarathi High Command spread through secure nets. It read, "Humans do not conquer for glory. They build, and they build hungry. They see empty space as opportunity, not void. We pushed them to this point. Now we pay the price." Fear grew thick in every capital. Younger species whispered that maybe the elders made a mistake. Maybe humans were never weak, just patient, waiting for the dawn. Right moment to show what they could do. Older species remembered ancient warnings about species that survived their own destruction. Those warnings spoke of terrible strength hidden under calm faces. On a small human colony ship orbiting a newly claimed world, Captain Elena Marquez stood on the bridge, watching crews unload equipment below her. Marines trained settlers, built homes, children played in new parks. She turned to her first officer and said, "They thought we would beg. Now they learn we do not beg. We work." The first officer nodded and replied, "Phase 1 still holds. The galaxy watches, but they no longer laugh." Far away in the assembly hall, the delegates met again. Voices lower now, arguments shorter. Everyone knew the truth. The first fracture had appeared in the old order, and humans made it with calm hands and steady purpose. The galaxy no longer felt safe. It felt small, and humans grew larger every day. The fear settled deeper, because everyone understood this was only the beginning. The galaxy watched in fear as humans stormed out of the assembly. Humanity did not declare total war. That would have made things simple and predictable. Instead, they moved forward in a quiet, steady way that frightened everyone more than loud threats would have. They reclaimed systems that old galactic maps had marked as empty or unclaimed. Ancient surveys from thousands of years ago showed these worlds as possible homes, but no one ever settled them, because the distances felt too great, or the resources seemed too thin, or the routes too dangerous. Humans did not care about those old reasons. They arrived with purpose. First came the scout ships, small, silent vessels that slipped through jump points no one watched anymore. They mapped landing zones, checked atmospheres, tested soil, then vanished again. Soon after, larger convoys followed. Dozens of transports protected by carriers that unfolded into combat shapes when needed. Terraform rigs dropped from orbit. Giant machines that chewed rock and ice turned barren ground into breathable air and fertile dirt. Mining rigs followed, digging deep for metals, fuel crystals, rare elements needed to feed growing fleets. Engineering arcs came next. Huge floating factories that printed habitats, roads, power plants. Entire small cities rose on worlds that had known only wind and dust for ages. When resistance appeared, the pattern stayed the same. Humans sent messages first. Polite offers of relocation, safe passage, new homes on neutral worlds. If locals refused to leave military zones, the response came fast, but never cruel. Drones swept in first, clearing weapon emplacements. Railguns fired from orbit, taking out only what threatened. Marine teams landed in powered armor. They secured areas with precision. No unnecessary destruction, no burning villages, no mass graves, just removal of threats. Then the work continued. Settlers arrived. Families, children, schools, farms, factories. Life took root quickly. The assembly tried every tool they had. left new layers of sanctions, cut off trade routes. Symbolic blockades sent fleets to guard key lanes. Joint patrols from 10 species circled claimed human zones, hoping to scare the newcomers back. None of it worked. Human supply chains bent around every barrier. They jumped through nebula clouds where sensors failed. They used dark lanes between arms that swallowed light itself. Their jump drives sang songs no other race could match. Short hops, long leaps, precise skips through gravity wells. Factories on human worlds and new colonies churned without pause. Metal flowed from printers, hulls slid from cradles, engines tested hot and clean. Ships grew in numbers that broke every economic model the elders once trusted. A leaked recording from a Vorath's strategy meeting spread through hidden channels. The War Master spoke in a low, tired voice. "We send scouts, they disappear. We send patrols, they come back damaged or not at all. We try to starve them. Their yards keep building. We threaten their colonies. They expand faster. Our fleets grow tired. Theirs grow stronger. This is not war as we know it. This is something else." Younger species listened to the words and felt new fear ripple through their populations. On crowded hive worlds, on crystal cities, on ocean planets, people gathered in public squares, watched feeds of human activity, and whispered the same question: how do they do this so fast? Older species remembered forgotten stories, tales of races that once challenged the galaxy and vanished. Humans seemed different. They did not rage. They did not gloat. They simply built and kept building, hungry for more space, more resources, more future. In one reclaimed system called New Horizon by the humans, a human governor stood on a balcony overlooking a growing city. Lights stretched across valleys that had been dark stone only months before. Below her, workers from a dozen human worlds mixed with a few alien families who chose to stay. Drones flew overhead, carrying supplies. Children laughed in parks, schools, taught classes in basic and advanced tongues. Factories hummed, turning ore into parts, parts into machines, machines into progress. She turned to her aide and said, "They thought we would stop at the first fight. Now they see we never planned to stop." The aide nodded and replied, "The assembly meets again tomorrow. They talk of peace offers, but their voices shake. They know we will not kneel." Word of that city and others like it spread fast. Probes captured images of green fields on red deserts, of domes glowing under alien suns, of children playing where no one had played before. Billions watched those images and felt something shift. No longer pure fear, but a mix of awe and dread. Humans did not conquer to destroy. They conquered to create, and creation on this scale looked unstoppable. The assembly hall on Kalis Prime filled once more with delegates, but the energy felt different. Voices stayed lower. Arguments ended quicker. Many seats stayed empty. Species that once sent large groups now sent only 1 or 2 representatives. Fear kept them away. Others came because absence would look like surrender. The War Master sat in his usual place. His armor looked heavier, his eyes tired. He listened as speaker after speaker called for unity, for action, for anything that might slow the human tide. A Clythe elder rose and spoke in a thin voice. "We must negotiate. We must offer terms, generous terms, lift all sanctions, return trade access, share technology, anything to make them pause." The room murmured agreement, but no one sounded sure. Then a lone human observer who had permission to watch from the visitor gallery stood up. He wore plain clothes, no rank, no weapons. He waited for silence, then spoke in clear, basic words. "You pushed us out. Now you want us back on your terms. We rebuild what you tried to limit. We grow where you tried to shrink. Talk if you want, but know this, we no longer asked permission." He sat down. The hall went quiet. No one shouted. No one argued. Simply stared at the human, as if seeing him for the first time. Outside the hall, across known space, human ships continued their silent march. Convoys jumped into new systems, scouts mapped routes, arcs built bridges between worlds. Supply lines thickened like rivers after rain. Every day, the map changed. Every day, human territory grew. The galaxy watched those changes and understood something important. Humans had not stormed out in anger. They had left to prepare. And preparation for humans meant turning empty, dark space into homes, into strength, into future. A small probe deep in uncharted space caught a faint signal from a human command ship. The voice sounded young but sure. Phase 1 nears completion. Prepare for Phase 2. The words ended there, but the meaning lingered. Phase 2. No one knew what it held, but everyone felt the same cold certainty. It would come soon, and when it did, the galaxy would change again. Fear no longer came only from weapons or numbers. It came from the quiet, relentless way humans worked. From their refusal to beg, from their habit of building when others would have broken. The elders had mistaken patience for weakness. Now they paid for that mistake, and lost control, lost pride, lost sleep. And somewhere in a new human shipyard, a fresh hull slid free from its cradle. Engines flared for the first time. Lights came on across decks. Crews boarded, smiling, because they knew their work mattered. Because they built not just ships, but a future no one could take away. The galaxy waited, holding its breath, afraid of the next quiet step humans would take. The galaxy watched in fear as humans stormed out of the assembly. 1 full year had passed since the humans walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall without a single angry word. The galaxy still remembered that quiet march down the aisle. The calm faces, the doors closing behind them like the end of an old era. Now the fear had grown into something thick and heavy. Every species felt it, in their homes, their ships, their councils. No one spoke of it openly, but everyone knew. The humans had not disappeared. They had simply kept moving forward, building, claiming, growing. The assembly hall on Kalis Prime opened its great doors once more for an emergency session. Every seat filled. Almost every delegate came, because staying away would look like defeat. The lights burned low, as if too much brightness might make things worse. The air felt thick with worry. Translators hummed softly, but few words came at first. Everyone waited. Then the massive doors hissed open again. All eyes turned. Ambassador Lyra Voss stepped inside alone. No delegation followed her. No guards, no bright uniforms. Just one human woman in a plain black coat with a single silver pin on the chest. A small globe crossed by an olive branch, now broken in half. She walked to the podium without hurry. Her boots made the same steady sound that everyone remembered from a year ago. She stood there for a moment, looking up at the tiers of seats filled with creatures from 300 worlds. Then she spoke in clear, simple words. The sanctions are lifted. The reclamation zones are now sovereign human territory. Any attempt to interfere will meet proportional response. A Vorath delegate rose slowly, his heavy body shaking just a little. He spoke in a rough voice. And if we refuse to accept this? Lyra looked straight at him for a long moment, then answered. Then the galaxy will learn why we walked out so quietly. Because, if we had stayed to argue, we would have stayed to fight. Right here, in this hall. Everything we have. She turned away from the podium, walked back toward the doors. No one moved to stop her. No one shouted. No one even whispered loudly. The hall stayed silent, except for the soft sound of her footsteps. The doors opened. She stepped through. They closed behind her. Every newsfeed across civilized space caught that moment. The lone human leaving the assembly, one back turned to hundreds of frozen faces. Billions watched it happen in city squares, on warship bridges, in quiet homes. The image burned into minds everywhere. One human against the galaxy, and the galaxy did not dare act. Far from Kalis Prime, in the heart of human space, shipyards worked without pause. Massive cradles released new hulls every hour. Engines tested in long lines. Factories printed parts faster than eyes could follow. Supply convoys jumped in from distant colonies, bringing fuel, metals, rare cores, everything needed to keep the machine running. Admirals met in quiet rooms, looked at star maps marked new zones, and nodded. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins soon. On a newly settled world called Elysium, children ran through green fields that had been gray rock only months before. Schools taught lessons about old Earth and new stars. Farmers worked soil brought from homeworlds. Engineers built towers that touched thin clouds. Families gathered at night to watch ships rise into the black, knowing those ships carried their future. A human captain stood on the bridge of a fresh battle carrier, looking down at the growing city below. He turned to his crew and said, "They thought we would break. Now they see we bend the universe instead." The crew smiled, because they understood the work mattered more than words. Back in the assembly hall, the delegates sat for a long time after Lyra left. No one wanted to speak first. Finally, the Zarathi High Sage stood up, his crest drooping a little. "We must accept reality," he said. "The humans no longer ask. They take what they need. We pushed too hard. Now we live with the result." Murmurs of agreement moved through the tiers. Some delegates looked angry. Others looked tired. A few looked relieved. The vote came quick. Lift the sanctions. Recognize the new borders. Open channels for limited talk. No one argued against it. The tally showed near-perfect agreement. Fear had finally forced unity. But even with the vote passed, the fear did not leave. It changed shape. Now the galaxy feared not just what humans had done, but what they might do next. Every scout report, every sensor ping, every faint signal from human zones carried weight. Admirals watched borders closer than ever. Diplomats practiced careful words. Traders asked high prices for routes near human space. In a small neutral bar on a station far from any capital, a group of mixed species sat together, watching the feeds of Lyra leaving the hall. One old trader from a forgotten race lifted his glass and said to the humans, "They did not storm out in rage. They left to prepare. That is what scares me most." The others nodded quietly, because they knew it true. Humans had always prepared on their home world. They prepared through ice ages, through wars, through plagues, through dark times when the sun itself seemed against them. They prepared across stars, turning nothing into everything, building when others rested, expanding when others shrank. A young Clythe at the table asked, "What comes next?" No one answered right away. Then the old trader spoke again. "What comes next is whatever they decide. We watch, we wait, we hope they stay calm, because if they ever decide the galaxy needs fixing, we will not stop them." The words hung in the air like smoke. No one laughed, no one argued. They simply drank and watched the stars outside the window, where human lights now dotted places that had stayed dark for millennia. Somewhere in deep space, a human fleet moved through a nebula cloud. Engines quiet, weapons cold but ready. The admiral on the flagship, "Officers," and said the galaxy blinked first. "Now we build in peace, but always ready." The officers nodded. They knew peace came from strength, and strength came from never stopping. On Earth itself, in the old cities and new arcologies, people gathered in parks, looked up at screens showing the assembly session. They cheered quietly, not with wild joy, but with deep satisfaction, because they had waited long enough. Now the galaxy understood humans did not need permission to live, to grow, to reach. Ambassador Lyra Voss sat in her shuttle, heading back to human space. She looked out at the stars and thought about the walkout a year ago, about the fear in alien eyes, about the silence that followed. She smiled small and private, because she knew the truth. Humans had not stormed out to destroy. They had left to create. And creation, that was the most powerful force of all. The galaxy kept watching, afraid not of anger, but of purpose, afraid not of noise, but of quiet, relentless work. Humans had shown. that when pushed, they did not fall back. They moved forward faster, stronger, surer than anyone expected. And in the black between stars, human shipyards sang their endless song. Hulls, engines, dreams, futures, all growing together, all waiting for whatever came next. The galaxy understood one simple truth now. Humanity had arrived, not as guests, not as children, but as equals, who built their own place and dared the rest to try taking it away. No one tried,